if you get to a point where no one else can do what you do, if you're the only one that can write that book or create that website, then you have all the power. You're going to create something really interesting and unique in this world. That's the end game, and that's where you'll get if you sort of take that first critical step. It's a great story. I mean, I've met so many people, especially in the last few years, who have a similar story to you, where they pursued law or something in the corporate world and they hated it. And then they were able to get out and find, the internet is amazing for that, where you can create something that's totally your own and you can write your own ticket. Maybe you don't make immediately as much money, but you're much more excited. The thing about creativity is I want to demystify it a little bit in my book, because like genius and talent, we have this cliche, this sort of aura around the idea of creativity. And I want to show you that the human brain is naturally creative. If you look at children, or you think back when you were a child, your brain was naturally making all sorts of amazing connections between weird ideas. That's why, when you talk to children, they'll completely surprise you with these ideas, these concepts that they suddenly associate in some very unusual way. The brain is naturally creative. If you've ever tried to meditate, like I practice meditation, and you try and turn your brain completely off, you'll notice that without even trying, the brain is like on autopilot, making all of these weird connections between ideas, or in your dreams. The brain is a naturally creative instrument. It wants to connect things, and you lose it over time because you become what I call conventional. You learn certain rules that you have to follow. You study something that doesn't interest you. You start thinking about things like making money, which becomes the most important thing in your life. And suddenly your brain goes around in a circle. Steve Jobs compared it to a record on a turntable that just goes round and round in these same grooves. You lose that natural creativity, but the amazing thing is, like you said, you always can get it back at any age. And I have examples in the book of people suddenly in their 30s, 40s, even in their 50s, regaining that amazing creativity that children have. Because what happens is, if you follow this path that I'm talking about, and your brain has so many connections that can possibly go on between bits of knowledge that you've learned, there are certain exercises that you can take that I describe in the book for kind of loosening up your mind, for getting rid of that conventional pattern thinking that you have. And suddenly, if you're able to be loose and follow some of these strategies, you're going to burst out with creativity almost naturally, like a child does. So it's not something that some people are born with. Mozart wasn't born creative. It's something that you develop over time. And I really want to sort of finally put a hammer to that stupid idea that creativity is about how you were born, or taking drugs, or just being in the moment. No, it's a function of your experience and your ability to overcome the kind of tightening of the mind that occurs over the years. Realistically, the answer is no. There are people who may love the piano, but they're not personally, there is something that they don't have. Maybe they don't have a good sense of rhythm that they're born with, or they don't. I'm kind of tone deaf myself, so I could never really be great at the piano. You may love basketball, but you happen to be born 5'6". You're not very tall, so there are constraints. But this is how I look at that. If you love the piano, but you're not really, your fingers or your head isn't wired for it, it doesn't mean that something is wrong. It just means that there are other aspects of music. What excites you is music. So you should be somehow getting into music as a career. And you don't have to be playing the piano. You could become a critic, or you could become a teacher, or you could take up another instrument or something else, or you could become a lawyer dealing with music. There are other avenues to explore. In the United States, I happen to love basketball. There's a coach, a former coach of the New York team, the New York Knicks, Jeff Van Gundy. He happened to be very short, loved basketball. You can't play. He became a coach, and that is his way of fulfilling that natural excitement he had with it. So you've got to choose something related to what you're interested in. And if you realize you're not physically gifted for the music, you choose something else that's related, because you'll still be able to have that passion and that level of desire. Yeah, I have an example in Mastery of the greatest boxing trainer of our era, Freddie Roach. He's one of the people I interviewed, because I also interviewed contemporary masters for the book. And he, from the age of 4, his father forced all of his sons to become boxers. And from the age of 4, he was boxing. And he liked it, but he didn't love it. And he became a professional boxer, and he was a professional for 8 years. And he was good, but he wasn't great. And he had to retire at the age of 26. And here's someone whose whole life, 22 years of just practicing boxing, and now he can't do it anymore. He can't make money off of it. What's he going to do? And his whole life could have just fallen apart at that moment, but he one day wandered back into the gym and just started helping out the younger boxers, just sort of helping them out. And he realized, like I realized, oh, I should be writing books. He realized, oh, I was meant to be a trainer. Like you said, he's not the player because for whatever reason, he's not good enough, but he would be an amazing coach. And in coaching, he doesn't have to take punches, but he can be competitive and strategic. He can do everything that he loves. So it's never like exactly a straight line to that perfect job. You've got to be awake and aware and see what fits and doesn't. And sometimes it's something not exactly what you thought it would be, but it's related enough that it excites you. A lot of people are naturally lazy. What they'll do is they'll come to you to start a project, and they'll say, let's collaborate together on a business or a book. And you go, wow, that's great. I'd love to. You seem interesting. And then you suddenly realize that you're doing all the work, and they're just sitting around, drinking or having parties, and then they'll collect half the money or the paycheck in the end, because they wanted to use you and use your effort and your creativity for themselves. I want you to be able to recognize the difference between someone who legitimately wants to invest in your project and collaborate, and someone who's just using you. That kind of is a skill to recognize that. And so that's why I talk about it in the book. And it's going to be the subject of my next book. My next book is only about social intelligence and how to read people on this sort of higher level. I'm trying to tell you that there are no shortcuts to mastery. And we all love to think that there are shortcuts, like some app that'll give it to us quickly. And I'm giving you the bad news. There's really no such thing when it comes to being great at your career. But there is one sort of shortcut, and that's finding a great mentor. There's someone who can look at you in real time and say, Navid, this is what you should do, what you shouldn't do. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what you need to practice. Don't go over there, go here. They're going to save you years of mistakes. They're going to streamline the process, and they're going to make you focus on what you really need to practice and get better at. So it could normally take 10 years of doing something to reach that level of creativity that I'm talking about. With a really good mentor, maybe in 5 or 6 years or 7 years, if it works and it really clicks. So the key thing, though, is how do you find that person? Because it isn't always easy. First of all, you don't have to find a mentor. There are examples of people. I have in the book Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors and entrepreneurs who ever lived. He never had a real mentor. He used books as kind of mentors, but so it's not, you don't have to, so get that out of the way. The other thing is, you don't want to look for a mentor just because you feel the need for it, and you have to have something to offer the other person. It's like a mutual coming together. He or she is getting someone that can help him or her with their work, can do some of the drudge work, etc. You can help organize their life, and in return, you're getting all this brilliance from them. So you don't look for a mentor until you're ready. If you're fresh out of college, you don't have anything to offer necessarily. You don't have any skills, any experience. You're too naive. You're too sort of stupid for me to just be about it. And so no one's going to want you as their mentor. And if they do want you, it's probably for all the wrong reasons. They really want you as a slave, and you're never going to really learn anything. So maybe don't look for one until you've got a couple of years under your belt of jobs where you learn about the world, you have organizational skills, you're disciplined, etc. Okay, that's, rule number one. And number two is, there's a combination. Sometimes people cross your path by accident who can serve as a good mentor. And in other cases, you have to go out there and look and try and find him or her. The thing to keep in mind is it's a very important relationship in your life. It's like your second father or mother. You have a chance to choose it, and you have to be careful because some people are bad mentors in the world. They don't want to let you discover who you are. They want to keep you under their thumb. They're going to inhibit you in some way. They are going to relive some of their own psychological problems on you. And it can turn into a negative experience. So you want to choose someone that you identify with almost emotionally. They share similar tastes and inclinations. You can say, in 5 or 10 years, I want to be that person. If they cross your path, if that kind of person crosses your path, you got to make them into your mentor somehow. If not, you can go out and find them. People are more willing to serve as a mentor than you might believe if you have something to offer them. But as an example, in my book, I talk about one of the contemporary masters that I interviewed, a woman named Yoki Matsuoka, who's a brilliant robotics engineer, etc. She was going to MIT in the robotics department there, and there was a professor who everybody else hated because he was a rebel, had really long hair, was kind of nasty, wasn't very nice to people. And she had the same attitude. She grew up playing tennis, and she loved John McEnroe and Andre Agassi. She was a rebel her whole life. She goes, this is the person who has the same spirit and mood as I have. I can really feel, I would like to be like him. That's the kind of thing that you want. It's not just an intellectual connection. It's also an emotional thing where you look up to and you admire this person, and there's that kind of connection going on. And you must get over the idea of money. Let's make this clear. I talk about your apprenticeship years, which are generally your 20s, but you're an apprentice your whole life. You're always learning things and learning new skills. But the real hardcore apprenticeship is more or less in your 20s. And the key to success, what you want to do is you want to gain as many skills as possible. Real skills that you've mastered in 2, 3, 4 different areas. For you, being a lawyer, writing, whatever the other skills are, starting a business. When you get to that point that you can take those 3 or 4 skills, now in your 30s, you can combine them in a new business or a website, a podcast or whatever that's gonna really kick ass. But the thing is, it's not about money. In your apprenticeship years in your 20s, it's not about how much money you're going to make. It's about learning as much as possible and gaining skills. So if there's a mentor out there who doesn't want to pay you, they can't pay you, or the pay is not very good, grab it. Because in the end, what you can learn from the right person is worth 80 times more than any kind of money you could possibly gain.